Sanji Enes, Master Trainer with AIMS TTP Cameroon. We are going to start this training unit with a series of quotes. The very first one: success is 20% skills and 80% strategy. You might know how to succeed, but more importantly, what's your plan to succeed? Jim Rohn. The next quote: a vision without a strategy remains an illusion. That is according to Lee Bowman. The next quote says, the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. Michael Porter. Hello to you and welcome to this fourth training unit, strategies to promote learning of the second module, planning of pedagogic activities. In this training unit, we will discuss certain factors that help promote learning in order to derive our own strategies, including what are the behaviors that indicate successful learning in your classroom? What are the factors that can contribute to effective learning of mathematics? Have you ever experienced or witnessed a situation where you or some other teacher has taught a lesson during which the whole classroom was full of enthusiasm, but after questioning the concept taught, you were unpleasantly surprised by the poor responses or the underperformance of your students? As a math teacher, have you investigated the cause of this underperformance of your students? What were your conclusions? What do you think? What could be the cause? Indeed, as a mathematics teacher, in addition to the leadership that you should show and your classroom activities that you should prepare, you also should make sure that your students have genuinely acquired the skills you want to transmit. So, how do you know that learning is taking place with your students? What can facilitate or inhibit this learning? In fact, what are the factors that contribute to learning? To ensure your students' success in maths, you need to be able to notice when learning is actually happening and students' action that prove they are engaged in the learning process. To facilitate learning in the classroom, we need to know the factors that contribute to learning and those that inhibit learning. Here are some of the factors you can use to achieve this goal. There are quite a handful of them. We have beliefs, behavior, classroom environment, usefulness of the concept of applicability, mathematical reasoning, differentiation, progression, skill development, inclusion, learners' engagement or motivation. Now, we want to take the very first one, beliefs. Now, regarding beliefs, here are some questions that we invite you to think about personally and especially in your cluster. Do your conceptions of mathematics influence your teaching? Do your views on mathematics education influence your learning? Are you influenced by your school experiences, college, high school, or even university? Do education policies influence our beliefs? In Module 1, Training Unit 1, we saw that your beliefs influence the learning of your students. In order to avoid these influences negatively on your students' results, it is important to question the influences of your beliefs in mathematics on a daily basis and consciously create a strategy to allow you to reinforce the expression of your positive beliefs and change or eliminate expressions of your beliefs that may negatively influence how you teach and thus the learning of your students. Okay, still in line with factors that contribute to learning and those that inhibit learning, we move on to behavior. Here are some questions that you should ask yourself to detect the level of learning of your students. What are the behaviors that promote learning? Both your own behavior and that of your student. How do I teach these good behaviors in class? Who is responsible for teaching these good learning behaviors? In the module 1, Training Unit 1, we saw that your behaviors influence learning of your students. In order to teach good behavior to your learners, you must have them yourself. For example, if you want your students to be punctual, you must be punctual. If you want them to work together, you have to work with them and involve them during your lessons. The next factor that we want to look at is classroom environment. Regarding this factor, we invite you to ask yourself these few questions. How does the classroom learning environment support your students' learning? How do you praise the good work of your students? Do you have adequate resources and equipment at your disposal? It's true that environment depends on your place of service. In fact, if you are in Garigombo at the borders of Central Africa, you will not have the same environment with someone in Yaoundé, Buea, Douala, or even Bamenda. Nevertheless, you can ensure that your students feel safe and supported, free to learn without being mocked or insulted, and that they have the minimum material for each lesson. We call this a student-friendly classroom or a positive learning environment. Let's take some few examples. Encourage your students to always try and make sure that neither you nor the students mocks someone who tries and gets the wrong answer. Build a support network among the students so that they help build each other up instead of breaking each other down. For example, you can use small groups as teams so that if one goes to the board and is unable to solve the problem, the other members are also implicated. Remember, no insult. Suppose that your students do not have geometry material. You can design a fun and engaging activity to find time with your students to create your own material. This will ensure that everyone can participate and learning during the lesson. There are many other things that you can imagine to make learning fun and easy. As you can see, how well your classroom environment promotes learning will generally depend on your degree of initiative. The next factor we want to look at is the usefulness or applicability of mathematics, or what the lesson you're teaching in class. The question we want to ask again is, what can the study of functions be used for in real life, and logarithm? What is mathematics used for? You have had, or you will have, this type of questions from students before. Imagine a farmer who has to go to his field every day, carrying, in addition to his machete and his hoe, an anvil of which he does not know the function or the utility, and which he does not use during his activity once in his field. Do you think that this farmer will bear to transport this anvil every morning to his field and bring it back every evening? Indeed, as you have noticed so well, this anvil will be considered as a burden. So, what do you think should be the attitude of your students who do not see the usefulness of mathematics because they cannot see how mathematics can be used or applied? This is why a good mathematics course must include real examples of how and where the mathematical concepts are used, so that the students can see the value of the concept and become interested in mathematics. Here are some questions you need to keep in mind to achieve this goal. Does your teaching allow you to apply concepts in unfamiliar mathematical contexts? Does your teaching help solve a daily problem, if one exists? Are your lessons concrete and goal-oriented? Most students in secondary school in Cameroon are not engaged in activities that require the application of mathematical concepts. They are not dividing fractions by fractions or determining the center of gravity, otherwise what you call the barycenter, of an object or objects. However, that does not mean that you, as their teacher, cannot make the subject interesting and provide motivating examples and applications. The easiest way to provoke interest is to create a captivating problem that the students will want to solve. Present a situation, what we normally call the problem situation, in which they must apply their mathematical knowledge and use it to discover new and better ways to solve problems that they could not solve before. Each lesson can be a challenge that the student will be encouraged to accept. Once the learning activity for the lesson is complete and the students have acquired the knowledge and skills for the lesson and they are able to solve the problem situation, then you can list some of the actual uses and application of the concept in various careers and professions, especially those that make money that exist in Cameroon. If students can visualize their future professions, when they see how mathematics is used in those professions, then they have additional motivation to focus on their lessons. In that regard, we invite you to read the example given in Training Unit 6 of Module 4 of the Teacher's Manual. This example will show you how to apply mathematical thinking and problem solving in a concrete way. The next factor we want to consider that can contribute to learning and those that will inhibit learning, the next is mathematical reasoning. Mathematical reasoning is a very important skill for learning mathematics. In order to determine the quality of your students' mathematical reasoning, here are some questions you can ask yourself. Who leads the reflection in your classroom? Who is asking the question? What kind of questions are being asked? A good lesson guides the students through the learning process by posing questions that allow them to apply mathematical reasoning. Ideally, you will be able to create an environment where your students are participating in the reflection. They should be posing questions to themselves and to you and to each other concerning the mathematical concept of the day. You can ask specific questions designed to lead them to the desired conclusions. If you are teaching fractions, for example, instead of simply stating that dividing 1 by 2 gives 2 halves, pose the question, what will happen if we divide 1 by 2? There will be some students who say that it is impossible, others that they don't know at all, and some that they can visualize fractions and will be able to explain their deductions. Like in the previous factor, we invite you to read the example given in a Training Manual Unit 6 of Module 4. This example again will show you how to apply mathematical thinking and problem solving in a concrete way. The next factor that contributes to learning and those that would attribute learning again is differentiation. As we saw during the previous training unit, all students do not move at the same speed. Some can run quickly on dry land like hares, but are unfit when it comes to swimming like a turtle. This is why your lessons must be adapted to the qualities and abilities of your students. Here is the main question you must constantly ask yourself to check the inclusiveness of your maths lessons. Are educational activities planned for low-level students, gifted and talented students, students studying in a foreign language, or students with disability? Differentiation implies that you have to follow each student differently depending on their skill and level. But differentiating is sometimes difficult when you have a large class size with 40, 50, 60, 70, and even 90, and why not 100 students in the same class. In this case, we suggest that you organize your class in groups, each group with 1 or 2 low-level students, 1 or 2 medium level, 1 or 2 talented. After that, you can set the talented student as the group leader and help him or her deal with his less talented classmates. In this way, you can follow the differentiation of the group and consequently the whole class. The next factor we want to look at that contribute to learning is progression. In the previous training units, we have together seen the importance of progression for the quality of your maths lesson. Therefore, you should ask yourself the following questions. Does your teaching aim to promote a concept, make the link between the concepts, prepare for an exam? To properly apply the progression in your class, your courses must be organized so that a course always has prerequisite from previous lessons or from certain concepts covered in previous classes in order to facilitate the comprehension of your students. The next factor we want to examine is skill development. Does your student aim to acquire skills, explain skills to students, demonstrate how to transfer the skills acquired? Practice makes perfect, they say. So you need to allow your students to practice enough, emphasizing that making mistakes is part of learning. Besides, even a machine has to make mistakes to learn. What about a person? According to Alexander Labessa. The next factor that contributes to learning that we want to examine is inclusion. According to you, does a Gary Gambo student on the borders of the Central African Republic have the same facilities as a student in the city of Yaoundé in terms of purchasing power to obtain a mathematical book? or a mathematical instrument needed for geometry. Indeed, the social and emotional factors will not be the same for all students depending on where you serve. In addition, even if you teach in a large metropolis, you must always keep in mind that parents do not have the same facilities. Some come to school by car, others walk miles to come to school. Therefore, if you want good math results from your students, you must always take into account the social and emotional factors of each. Inclusion goes beyond the economic aspect. It includes the way you deal with students with disability. For example, the visually impaired, hard of hearing, or people with reduced mobility. How to get them to participate in your lessons so that they feel involved in your lessons, involved in the classroom. We cannot close this part without stressing the need to apply a pedagogy based on the gender approach, allowing your students to go beyond the stereotypes acquired from the society in which they operate. The performance in mathematics has nothing to do with the gender of your students. Their possible disability, their social situation, their economic situation, but it depends on how you apply inclusion in your classes to bring out the qualities of these different students. The next factor that contributes to learning, or those that inhibit learning, that we want to examine is learner engagement. Engagement of your students during your mathematics lesson. How do learners approach the teacher and the course content? How do students demonstrate that they are learning new knowledge, values, and skills? The learner's engagement is the consequence of the previously mentioned aspects. All of these work together to get your students involved in math. This commitment is the key to their success. In conclusion, the implementation of the learning process requires the active participation of students. To measure learning in the classroom, it is necessary to identify students' behavior that indicate that learning is taking place. To this end, to facilitate learning in the classroom, one should know what contributes to learning and what inhibits learning. As an in-service or pre-service maths teacher, you need to know your students well in order to plan student-centered lesson. As you know, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, working together is success. Don't forget to share your ideas and questions in the forum. You can also go to the TTP COP platform via the following link in order to discuss with the members of your cluster. Remember, alone we go faster, and together we always go further. See you in the next training unit. Thank you.